You don't really know what life they are living.
You don't.
You can't pop by and drop off their favorite coffee in the morning at their workplace or whatever.
No. From there, let's just talk about, certain things that we know can either make or break a long distance relationship.
You're up in the very first conversation, right? Like there's been so
Right.
many times of like, oh, so you're in California? Yeah. Jason,
I am.
that was on my profile.
Yeah.
What part of that wasn't clear, right? How much of your time, how much of your brain space is taken up by this person?
Yeah.
Wondering, right? And that's in any relationship. But again, the additional layers with the long distance.
Okay, so what if the right person lives in the wrong zip code? Long distance relationships can feel incredibly exciting until, of course, reality sets in. The waiting, the wondering, the missed moments. So today on From Mrs. to Ms., I have my good friend Amy Watts joining me here once again. And we are talking about whether long distance can actually work, what makes it actually fall apart, and the signs that you're building a real relationship instead of just a fantasy. Hi, my friend Amy. How are you, sweetheart?
Hello. I am so excited to jump into this topic with you. This is something that I've experienced, and I know that it's something that you haven't maybe delved into on the podcast. So this is going to be a super cool conversation. So many angles to look at it. So excited. Let's do this.
I love this. And yeah, when this one came to mind, I was like, gosh, I don't think I've ever really talked about long distance relationships very much. Now, I have not really been in one. So not really knowing what it's like. I'm dabbling in one at the moment. So we're going to see where that goes.
That sounds juicy.
It's juicy. It's juicy. It's exciting. It's exciting. You know me. I'm like hesitant to say too much. I don't like jinxing things or, anything like that. But I'm actually enjoying it and wondering if this is really what I was meant to do all along. Like this fits my lifestyle so much more than I probably thought it would, I think.
Well, that's interesting because when you hear a long distance relationship, I think the experiences that I've had in those conversations is people tend to think of it as it's a struggle. It's a challenge, a really hard thing to do. But you just mentioned maybe this is exactly what I need right now. Say more.
Yes. Well, I've always thought of it that way, like a struggle, like that just sounds hard. How do you make it work? Because you have to, mentally, you have to make effort. You have to be okay financially to make those efforts. You have to be so consistent and intentional about it all that it is a lot of work, and you have to be in the right mindset. You have to be prepared for it in so many different ways. And so, I know that you have done it in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to kind of talk about the contrast of it, right? Like doing long distance right off the bat when you don't even know each other, but then also because you already were in a relationship with somebody when it became a long distance. So how you kind of went about that, right? That's kind of our difference there. Yeah.
Also, I did have, when I first started dating, it was pretty much all long distance. So I can speak to a couple different,
so this is good.
A couple different perspectives on it. Yeah.
Okay, good. We've got this covered on every angle because I'm just like the new one. I'm learning as I'm going. I'm trying not to be too excited to jump ahead of myself, but also be in the moment and really enjoy it, So, okay, let's start with yours then. Like, tell me about, or tell the listeners, I guess, about what that looked like for you in both scenarios even, so we can kind of get a feel for what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think, as with any topic of conversation, maybe even defining, like, what does long distance mean? Does that mean they live an hour away, or is it a flight away?
Okay.
Right?
What was it at the time for you?
Yeah, so let me take you way back, Andrea, to when we first started dating post-divorce.
Go the distance. Go way back. Go the distance.
Woo! Well played. Well played. So yeah, let me take you to 2022.
Okay.
So I lived about 2.5 hours south of Chicago, and I knew I wasn't staying in the area. Also, like a mid-sized city. But the pool is small, right?
Yes.
So I knew I wasn't going to date there. So I knew immediately when I started, I say that, but then I ended up dating someone for a year who I was introduced to by a mutual friend. But outside of that one person, I knew it was going to be, quote, long distance. So that for me at that point meant a 2.5 hour drive to Chicago, where the pool is definitely larger, right?
Yeah.
So that was long distance to me at that point. that lasted about, I dated in that realm for, I don't know, 9 months to a year, probably. Beyond that, my experience with long distance dating was, yes, a flight is required. So to your
Mm-hmm.
point, you have to consider things like, do I have the time away from work? I was not an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur at the time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
is Friday evening to Sunday afternoon going to be enough time? And
Enough.
considering flights, and do I have to have connecting flights? So you really kind of got to
Yeah.
get into the weeds of the logistics sometimes to even figure out how
Yes.
it's going to work. If you are both in a traditional 9 to 5, I think it makes it super challenging. If one or both are entrepreneurs and have some remote freedom, can be a
Mm-hmm.
really different game, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those things to consider. So yes, then I dated largely in Atlanta, in the
Okay.
Atlanta area, because I was intending to move there as soon as life circumstances allowed. So it was challenging,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like, okay, we would connect on the app or have some phone conversations, and then set the time to. I would go there to visit usually. Now I know there are probably some little spidey senses perking up there. Like, wait a minute, why did you go there? Because I knew that's where I was intending to move, so it made sense,
Okay.
right?
Okay. So you're
There was
getting a
always a
feel for it. Yeah.
hotel involved and things like that. So it was costly. I never paid for
Mm-hmm.
any of it. That's not true. That's not true. I did a few times,
Okay.
parts of it,
Okay.
out of pride probably. But yeah, so understanding the logistics, the
Yeah.
time factor, the financial resources. And then there's this weird, like, if you're dating someone locally, like you are in a large area, right, with
Yes.
lots of people and lots of great things to do, lots of great date spots, it's easy to date casually and just be like, yeah, it's just, I want to have somebody to try out new restaurants and go to the farmer's market on Sunday and things like that. But when you're talking about distance, it's different. There has to kind of be some mutual intent, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So it
Mm-hmm.
might speed up some of those conversations that you wouldn't typically have. Okay, so we
Very
can dig
true.
into the weeds around all that. So there's
Okay.
that side of my experience with long distance. The other side, um, I was still living in Illinois
Mm-hmm.
and knew that I was moving to Charlotte, North Carolina. So I had set the app to travel mode. No, well, I didn't know I was going to move there at that point, but I was going to visit for a long weekend.
Okay.
And so I had set the app to travel mode, like, I don't know, like maybe a week or so before I went,
Okay.
and connected with someone. We chatted.
Wait, that's a
This
smart
individual.
move. I'm sorry, I just want to
Okay, tell me
interject there.
more.
That's a
Yeah.
smart, yeah, that's a smart move to do that with the dating app. If there's somewhere that you feel you are going, you're wanting to
Mhm.
move to and wanting to settle down, and you're going to go visit it, and you want to kind of see what they have to offer, you can set your
Yeah.
travel mode. I think only on Bumble. I don't know if there's other ones that you can set the travel mode to. I'm
I
not
only
sure.
was ever on Bumble and Match was
Okay.
minimal. So Bumble
Yeah,
was
so
what I was
probably
on most of
Bumble.
the time.
So you could set it ahead of time, set
Yes.
yourself up with a couple of dates to learn the city and have somebody to hang out with when you're there. Love
Yes.
that. Great idea.
Yes. And I knew it
Okay.
was just casual because at that point in the back of my mind, I was considering like this might be a place I would move to, but
Yeah.
I wasn't there yet. So it was casual. Like it was literally like, hey, I'd love to have somebody go out on a date with this
Yeah.
long weekend. So met this person, and they actually own like a transportation business and do like airport pickups.
Okay.
So they
That's
picked me up
convenient.
from the airport, right? It worked out really well.
Yeah.
So, we hung out a lot that weekend and continued communication when I
Uh-huh.
came back home. After that weekend, not because of the date, but after that weekend, I did decide, I crossed Atlanta off the list, and I just knew in my heart, like North Carolina was where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So it quickly turned into, I moved like a month later. So
Wow.
it really, that long distance was short. And again, I didn't make the move because of the relationship, but the
Yes.
relationship continued. That makes
Got
sense.
it.
Okay.
Got it.
Fast forward to my other experience then with this same person. Last year in 2025, I spent in California, which thankfully that is
Mhm.
how we met, right? And so in my time there, we were together when I left, when I
Mhm.
moved. And so, you can imagine there were a lot of tears. We were living together at the time.
Yes.
So a
Yeah.
lot of tears, a lot of unknowns, a lot of looking back, there were a lot more conversations that this conversation we are having right now will
Yeah.
serve others in, like, hey, y'all grab your notepad, your
Yeah.
notes
Take
app on
notes
your
on
phone,
this.
and take some notes here on some really important conversations to have, because
Yes.
we had some. We didn't
Okay.
have them all.
Mhm.
Um, we broke up a couple months into the relationship. And I will say that for sure the distance played a part in that.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
created some extra stress and it brought up some insecurities on both parts
Mm-hmm.
that were easy to ignore when we lived together. Right?
Mm.
When we were literally could not have been further apart. This is East Coast to West Coast, right? North Carolina to
Yes.
California. So
Yeah.
that definitely brought up some insecurities that I do think contributed to. I actually chose to end the relationship at that point.
Mm-hmm.
2 months later,
Mm-hmm.
I reached back out to them. Actually, there was an unfortunate circumstance. We had a mutual friend who was passing, and so there was some
Mm-hmm.
communication about just that situation. And
Mm-hmm.
in those conversations, I was like, what do you think about getting back together? Right. So thankfully he was open to it. So
Yeah.
at that point, we did about 6 months of intentional, committed relationship,
Yep.
totally long distance.
Yes.
Those are my experiences. And
Yeah.
then we can kind of go into the nuts and bolts of that, the
Okay.
the wins, the losses, the
No.
challenges.
Yes. Okay. So interesting. Interesting. So we have it before when you were doing the little bit of long distance before the relationship was really anything. And then later when it was already built into something and then just kind of keeping that consistent and making it sustainable,
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to do that. Right. And
Hmm.
so we have those phases covered. And then we have me who's just starting out in a long distance that I've never done before, and I'm just giving the basics today on it, a little bit on it. And for me, I feel like it feels like that show Love is Blind. It's what it's been feeling like.
Mm.
Where, and I don't know if you've seen that one, but everybody goes into a cubicle or cube type thing, and they're talking to somebody like behind the wall, right, or through a
Yes.
wall, and you don't get to see what they look like. You're just learning their personality and building from there. Well, in my particular case, I did get to see what he looked like, which definitely helped, right? So there was already that attraction there. But the foundation and the conversations we've had and the trust that we've already built and the consistency just from being able to have like those particular conversations, both knowing that we align and we're on the same page and we both want the same end game. That is what has just been amazing to get it to where it's at right now. It just feels very comfortable. It feels very easy and content. It doesn't feel like he's states away. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel
Mm.
like that. It feels like maybe he's gone on a little vacation and then he'll be back. And so we've already been very intentional about setting, time to see each other and making the plans and, being very cognizant of all of it, like work and, you know, family or, taking up family time or your weekend or spending money. I mean, you have to look at all of those things because those are the very things that will kind of send it in the wrong direction if it doesn't work out, right? Like the moment little things start falling apart, I think you start looking at those bigger things and go, yeah, well, it's costing me a lot of money to go there. And those become the argument pieces. So we've just been trying to be very intentional. That's our word of the year to just really focus on what we both want out of this and understanding that it is going to take the work, the time, the effort, and that we're
Hmm.
both willing to put into that. And we're already making all of those adjustments. I said to you earlier, the bar is set so high right now, and he is so far above that bar that it's just been amazing, right? And I'm trying not to like get too much into the future and start, thinking about that. But we also talked about that you have to have those conversations at some point too. So from there, let's just talk about, certain things that we know can either make or break a long distance relationship, right? And there's things that you have to be very cognizant about and know that if you do not stay consistent or keep that up, it's going to fall apart because it's too easy to do that. So, something that I actually brought up to him very early on is one thing I want to talk about today, which is the fantasy versus the reality of where you're at. And especially when you're making these efforts to fly to see each other and you have all of these things planned. You're coming for the weekend. You've got, one thing after the other planned. You're going to spend all this fun time doing all of these things, which is great and fun, but are you leaving enough time to make the connection? To like really focus on, you two without all of the fluff and what is that going to look like? And I think that comes a little bit later. Would you agree? I think that in the beginning, that's fine. You're just going to have fun, see if you connect, you're compatible, you're enjoying doing things. But as it goes on, you got to get a little bit more real, really.
Yeah, for sure. There is a
Yeah.
cadence to it that is going to be a different rate of speed than
Yeah.
if you are in person. Because even in a local, I guess is what we call the opposite of long distance
Yeah.
relationship, in a local
Local
relationship. I don't know.
relationship.
It sounds a
That's
little
a good one.
sounds a little industrial, but okay.
It's a
Um,
good one.
but in a relationship where you're both in the same city, there's still a honeymoon period, right?
Yes.
But then it can get into little things like, oh, but she shows up, or let me rephrase that. He shows up
Yes.
15 minutes late every time.
Mm.
Or, we're sitting at dinner and there's this awkward, like, who's paying? Or
Yes.
I noticed that when we're in the same room together for extended periods of time, there's very little interaction and she's on her phone or he's on his phone most of the time, right? So you don't have the opportunity to
Mhm.
pick up that data. So the cadence is a little bit different. I think you have to build in intentional, like you said, some intentional kind of everyday lifetime so that you don't
Yeah.
end up with just a bunch of highlight reels and that's what you're basing the foundation of the relationship on, right?
Yes, yes. It's so great because that's so easy to do. You're thinking always about the good stuff. We say that even when you break up, all you think about is the good stuff, and that's why you have the
Hmm.
desire to get back, right? So that's what's kind of happening there, and so many great points in what you just said, that you need to look at all of those little things as you're saying them. I'm running it through my mind, going, okay, ooh, did we do that? Did we do that? And again, we've been very intentional, so I know we've done all of those things so far. But it is important to make sure that you have that time, and because you have to watch how, or not even how, is this somebody that I can see in my everyday life? And that's a big one for me because I think, is this someone I can see hanging out with me and my kids? Because
Mm.
I'm big with hanging out with my kids. We go to a lot of movies. We like to watch Bachelor together. We have game nights. Is this somebody that I could see bringing with me to one of these events and he just fits in seamlessly? Or is it somebody that I'm going to need to babysit? Am I going to need to be making sure he's constantly okay, including him in the conversation? And you can't really tell those things when you're just fluttering around, doing all of the fun stuff. You really need to really look at those. And so I think there's a lot of things to look at there. You got to look at how they handle certain things. How are they with the wait staff in the restaurant? Right.
Yes.
Can they handle that? How do they handle disappointment? If I said, hey, I know you're going to be here, but I have to go, I have to do some work for half a day. Is he blowing up? I came here for you and I spent this money and da da da, right? Like, because those are real life situations and everyday things that can
Exactly.
come up. And that's what you have to be looking for. So a lot of great points on
So
that one.
yeah, would you say, since you're fresh in this, and I can almost hit the opposite side of this, but let me ask two sides of the coin. I'll leave one to you and one to me.
Mhm.
What conversations, and let me not put you on the spot, either have you had or would you recommend having in the beginning of a long distance relationship where you're both settled in your space? Like, again, in my situation in the very beginning, I knew I was moving. So there was no
Yeah.
conversation about, would you want to move here, or
Mhm.
right? So in a situation where both are firmly planted and rooted where they
Mhm.
are,
Mhm.
but you've also chosen to connect via
Yeah.
an app where you can see what state each other are in. So there
Yeah.
was some intention there.
Mhm.
Mm. And if not, then that's something that you can clear up in the very first conversation, right? Like, there's been so
Right.
many times of like, oh, so you're in California? Yeah,
Yeah, I
Jason, that
am.
was on my profile. What part of
Yeah.
that wasn't clear, right? Well,
Yeah.
never mind. I'm not really down for long distance. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
outside of those games, what conversations would you say are important and appropriate? Because that's a fine balance, right?
Ooh, I
Important to
like
have,
that.
but yet appropriate for the time frame, the season of the relationship.
Mhm. Mhm.
But to make sure, like, we're investing our time wisely here.
Yes, yes. That's such a great question. That's a really great question, Amy, because I think that you have to really walk that fine line, just like you said, of it being appropriate for the time frame that you're there. So yeah, like you said, in my particular situation, he happened to be here where I live, and then because his kids live here, so he left, and so it crossed, right? Like we just matched and it crossed somehow, and So I had a feeling because I kind of, it does say something. I think it maybe said where he was because he was there already. He had already gone home. That's probably what it was. He'd already gone home. So by the time I actually looked at it, I was like, oh, okay. I thought he was here. Um, but once we started having the conversation, it just felt very easy and natural and felt like somebody that I wanted to get to know. And for me, my lifestyle allows me to live anywhere I want. I'm not bound to be here in California where I am. I can go anywhere. And so it didn't scare me immediately. And so that's something you have to think about. Do I have that lifestyle that I could just pick up and go? Or even for visits, not necessarily to live. And so we very early on, I said, "Oh, I see you live somewhere else." And he was like, "I do." And he said, "But I'm open to meeting somebody wherever. I don't feel like you only are going to meet your soulmate in your backyard." And I feel that way too. I think people meet for a reason. And I think these dating apps are for a reason, that it allows you to meet people in so many other places. So I think for us, we had this little conversation early on. It was not too big. It was not too little. It was a Goldilocks conversation. It was just right. and I think that the smart thing about doing that is that you have to have a plan, regardless of if it's a week, a month, 6 months, or a year in. You need
Mhm.
to know, am I going to waste my time with somebody who has zero desire to move anywhere else? He's set where he's at. I have no desire to move there. Where will that ever go? Right.
Mhm.
And I think that it's okay to have that conversation, but like curtail it and keep it, you don't want to get all future faking and go crazy and be like, no, I totally picture us living in this place and having a dog, and we're going to have, all people over on the weekend and do the party. Like, we don't need to do that, right? We just need to have the simple, basic conversation of like, who would eventually move if we were going to continue this, pursue this? Are you open to moving? I'm not saying you have to. I'm just asking if you're open to it, right? Like, you're just kind of laying the foundation, finding out what you're both looking for, where you align, where you don't. Are you going to be equally invested? Those are really big questions to ask. And I think it's okay to ask those up front without getting carried away and starting to make it about potential rather than where you are right now, and just making a solid, clear idea or decision of what you're looking to move forward with. So I
Those are
think that,
excellent points.
yeah,
It's it's a
thank you.
responsibility if you choose to. Well, and it sounds almost like it was accidental that you both. It's like you didn't
Hmm.
see this person as in another country, and right, like you
Hmm.
were local when you connected,
Yes.
um,
And then
right.
it
So
didn't. Right.
then you had to decide. So there's a
Yeah.
responsibility that comes with the
Hmm.
choice to engage on a dating app with
Hmm.
someone who lives in a different state or far
Yeah.
away from you.
Yeah.
So, yes, to your point that it's not a matter of, oh my gosh, like let's write the rest of this story right now. It's more of a, okay, well, before we go any further, there are some things that we do
Yeah.
need to lay out here.
Right. Before we write that story, let's write the prologue and just see if we're like on the same little page, right? Like, let's see where we're at.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And so for me, I mean, that was ideal, that, and he actually kind of said it first, like, no, I'm open to wherever love might take me. Like, I am not bound to be where I am. And so I'm open to that. And I was like, okay, so am I. So great. We're already aligned coming out of the gates. Like, now we can kind of move forward, get to know each other, see if it's somebody I can see myself with, or that I'm enjoying the conversation, or I'm feeling reciprocation. Do our values align? Do our love languages align? Like, all of those things that you need to talk about to see if it's even worth, doing something like that. So you need to see if you are fully aligned, with all of
Mhm.
those things to see if you even want to move forward. But we got the tough question out of the gate. Okay, we both want the same end game and we can both make that work. So now let's fill in the gap and see if any of that works to get to that end game. So
Okay,
that's,
so you did the responsible long distance stuff up front. Then
yep.
you got through the basic, like, does this make sense? Are we values aligned? All those points that you just hit. So now what does day to day look like? And I'm not saying
So,
specifically in your situation, but day to day
yeah.
in long distance dating, right? To take you out of the hot seat.
Yeah. Like at
Stay there if you
8:03,
want
he
to.
calls me.
But so what are some of the specific challenges? And we can both speak to this
Mhm.
in choosing. We've both
Mm.
decided, we both know there's potential to be on a similar trajectory here. We've got similar end goals in mind. So now how
Mm-hmm.
do we navigate the day to day without being physically together to navigate the day to day?
Good question. So, first of all, I think the hardest thing I would probably say that it was right off the bat that I was thinking about is the trust factor. I think that it's, you are in two different states. We're in two different time zones a little bit. He's got a totally different life going on than what I have. Could he have a whole family at home? Yes, he could. Could he be married? Yes, he could. Right? Like, you don't have the autonomy just to show up at his house, see if somebody's there. You don't have, the freedom to be able to talk to his friends or talk to other people that hang around him and kind of get the goods so you are kind of going off a blind faith and hoping that you are both on the up and up and learning about each other. And so I think it's important to navigate that throughout the day carefully. I would not set certain times throughout the day that you talk at the same time every day, because that leaves those areas, right, where you can have a full nother life going on around those times. And I'm being very, I'm really reaching here. I don't know how often that happens. I don't know. Maybe it
It
does happen more
happens.
than I think. It
I did
happens.
have an experience, very, very short, but
Oh,
yes, where,
so it
yeah.
happens. Yeah. So you got to be aware of that, how that can, right? So, and I also was very clear with him up front, I am not the good morning text girl. If you are just going to message me and say, good morning, beautiful, and then I'm really not going to hear from you throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, you're going to say, good night, beautiful, and think that I'm going to be all down for this and start spending money to come see you. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for so much more than the breadcrumbs or the pittance that you're offering me, right? So you got to be clear. You got to be very sure of what you want before you start having these conversations, because I'm not going to try to make them be somebody if I'm not interested in even pursuing that, right? So we were very honest up front, and I just said, hey, that's not really my jam. I love if you want to say, hey, good morning, hope you had a great sleep, what's on the agenda today, or I'd love to chat with you later if you have time. That's totally different, right, than just a good morning, beautiful, don't hear from you all day. So I think that you just need to be very clear about how you want that day to look. It doesn't need to be set in stone all the time. You got to make time for each other. And that's going to be a big thing, because you need to be able to feel that closeness when he's not there, when you're not there, and the trust, and to know that, his actions line up with his words. If he says he's going to call, does he call? If he says he's going to text you, does he text you? If he says he's going to come see you, is he making plans? What does that look like? So those are the
Hmm.
questions that you have to have. And we did have a lot. I mean, when I say that we have set this foundation, I mean, we have set this foundation right now. And I am so proud of what we have done in this short period of time. And I don't feel like there was love bombing involved. I don't feel like we were setting ourselves up for failure of talking all about things in the future that's going to happen. We've not done any of that. We've been very present. We've been very in the moment. He is a man of action, which is amazing. Amazing, because that's hard to find these days. And that has made me just want to be more in and to reciprocate what he's giving to me. I want
Hmm.
him to feel as safe, as excited, as trustworthy, all of these things that I'm wanting to feel. So I've got to give that to him as well. Right? So that's
So,
a lot of
yes, for
things. A lot
sure.
of things.
Yes to all of it. And that is a lot of things. And most of them come into play regardless of whether it's long distance or not. You threw in several in there that are specific to
Mhm.
long distance. Very super important to note.
Mhm.
The overarching theme that I heard in everything that you just said was what we exchange as we
Yes.
are considering building a relationship, and what's required, the communication and being clear on what you want and expressing that, and finding common ground, want matches, so to speak, right,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that communication and consistency. But the other side of that is, and this is some of the stuff that I hit on in the period where my guy and I, we'd been together like 2 years easily
Mhm.
before I moved to California, and we had that period of distance. Each individual It takes an extra level, I think, of working through your own insecurities. Because like you said, you don't have some of the additional, confirmations and data
No.
to collect.
No. Line of
For
sight?
sure.
No.
So when, it can bring up, it can magnify for
It
sure
can.
any areas, any little growth edges that haven't quite been
Growth
addressed and
edges. I like
nurtured,
that.
or that have been maybe off to the side because you haven't had to face them.
Yeah.
That is key too, for those who are taking notes, right? So making
Yes.
sure that you're clear in your own security. How much of your time, how much of your brain space is taken up by this person? uh,
Yeah.
Wondering, right? And that's in any relationship. But again, the additional layers with the long distance, you don't really know what life they are living.
You don't.
You can't pop by and drop off their favorite coffee in the morning at their workplace or whatever.
Nope.
So I think it's a great opportunity to really deepen your internal intuition and trust and confidence and
Mm-hmm.
work through, it's a great time to get a coach, get in therapy, use your
Mm-hmm.
wise resources, mentors to really look at, oh, this is coming up and I want to communicate this to them, but why?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
I find myself stalking them on social media. I've had several clients lately that have experienced something similar, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, but I find that I'm constantly looking like, did they post? But they didn't text me. So I know they were on their phone. Like, that's the kind of
Mm.
craziness that we don't want
Oh,
to get into. Because really,
no.
when you look at it, what are you bringing into the relationship then? You're bringing
Yeah.
your doubt.
Angst and
Not that we're ever going
anxiety.
to eliminate those things, but that we can manage them internally on our
Yes.
own without it having to be constant confirmation from the other person because of those extra layers.
Yes. But those
So,
things
yeah,
are so normal within us, right? Like we all have our attachment styles. If you are in that disorganized attachment, you have the little bit of the anxious anxiety, right? You can be good for a good portion of the time, but there are those little things. And I was telling you earlier, I experienced just a little, what is that?
Mhm.
Kind of threw me off. And and he was so wonderful about like, no, like that does not need to be an issue. Anytime you want to talk about that, we can. And I needed that to just let me go, oh, okay. That was the only thing. Now I'm good. But
Yeah,
it's normal. That is normal that we're going to feel that stuff, especially in a long distance relationship, because you don't have the normal securities that you would in a local
sure.
relationship, as you called it.
You can
Yeah.
kind of gauge, like, is
Yeah.
this an obvious, like, this is going to pop up for anyone, or do I find that this has now occupied 3 hours of my day
Mm-hmm.
cumulatively? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where you can gauge, like, is this something I maybe need to address? And this space has given me the
Yes.
opportunity to do so, right? Okay,
Yes.
so that's another important piece. And then you
Yes.
talk about, so travel. And I think one thing that we hit on maybe pre-recording too was having an expectation of when you'll see each other.
Yes.
What
That
is that
was
off? That's
huge.
really, yeah,
Again, we really were very intentional about talking about what this looks like over the next 1, 2, 6, whatever months, right? So maybe we do get to a point that maybe we're like, okay, it's time we're gonna like really get together here. You gotta cultivate that. I mean, you leave that door open and you leave that door open, right? There's cracks. And when there's cracks in the, what do they say? I don't know. What's the phrase on that? Yeah, people come in the door is what I'm trying to say, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And so you always want to be, I tell him, like, fertilizing the grass, like watering the grass. You need to like really take care of your side of the lawn. And when you do that and you're making things very, I keep using this word intentional, but like that is what
hmm
we're doing. And so I'm being so,
hmm
direct about it because that is where we've put ourselves, right? Like we want
yeah,
to be intentional. When you're being very intentional and you're saying, okay, I don't want to give it any undue anxiety or any undue like feeling, right? Like so when we are together and we make the effort to spend together, let's talk about the next time. What does that look like?
yeah,
Is that, how far out is that going to be? And as far as to maybe go, okay, let's before we leave, let's like mark off these dates and we're both going to look
yeah,
at flights and see where it's best for us to go, what makes most sense, and give yourself the best opportunity possible to do
yes,
that. What a different feeling for
yeah,
to leave and know that. And again, he did just that, like he came to see me, he left, and then immediately he was like, "Hey, I was looking at dates. Why don't we get another one on the books?" And I love that because we've already planned 4 out from here right now. And I love that because it softens that an angst or anxiety that I was
Yeah.
feeling, right? Like,
Well,
I
let me give you
know.
my experience of that
Yes.
because you did it beautifully. So well done to both of you. This is what you mentioned attachment style earlier. So I said I could probably share the other side of a coin. I presented to you what have you done. And then my side of that coin is here's what did not work for us.
Yeah.
Knowing my attachment style at the time, it's shifted significantly since then. But discovered, and it took me about he came to visit me.
Hmm.
It took about 3 of those trips before I realized what was happening at the end. Like as we were packing up, as I was getting ready to take him to the airport, we didn't have a next date set. And to be fair, his schedule was very challenging to be able to
Yeah.
do that. But I caught myself, and again, it took me for the third trip before I realized what I was doing. But I would start to self-sabotage. I would start to withdraw and push
Oh,
away and be like, okay, deuces, peace, go ahead, go back. Doesn't matter if I see you again. And it
yep.
was self-protective, right?
Sure
Because it
was.
was a feeling of anxiety of,
Yep.
I don't know if or when, or does he intend to, right?
Yep.
And he did communicate that to the best of his ability, but I didn't receive it, honestly.
Mm.
About the third trip, we were literally standing at the door, getting like suitcase in hand. I'm getting ready to take him to LAX. And I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I just realized that I've been a total bitch for the last 6 hours because the little 6-year-old in me is like, but when are you
What if
coming
I don't
back? Are
see
you
him
just going to leave
again?
me here? What if I don't? Yeah.
Mhm.
What does that
Abandoned.
mean about me? Are you rejecting me? Right. And it sounds ridiculous, but
And it's
when you're not
not,
tuned
it's
in,
real.
you're just like, I was just kind of being a bitch. So
Yeah.
recognizing that made a huge difference. And
Yes.
again, we weren't necessarily able to schedule every upcoming visit, but it was
Sure.
on our radar
It was
then.
on your
We would at
radar.
least be having the conversation like pretty much every week at least. It would be like, okay, so what are these dates looking like for you? I know you can't commit to it yet, but at least we've got 2 different weekends we're looking at.
Yes. And I love that, but I love that
Huge.
you recognize the self-sabotage, right? And that's
And it
huge.
only
And
took 3 times, Andrea.
but again, had you had those conversations early on, and that would have put you a little bit more at ease of knowing, okay, we've already talked about this. He knows like that I'm going to need that a little bit more at the end
Yes,
of this. And that might have really helped. So,
it did.
I know that we are going to cut this one at this moment because we have so
I was
much more to
just going to
talk
say that.
about. Yeah, we have so much more to talk about. And so for those of you taking notes, I mean, so far we've talked about the fantasy versus reality, right? And then we've also talked about having a plan and then also trust. And I think we just have
Yes.
so much more to touch on because we need to know, are they really showing up for you? And are you showing up for them, right? Like how important consistency is. And also we want to talk about like, when is it okay to put your life on hold for someone? Or when is it,
Mm,
when you get to that point when you need to realize this just isn't working the way it is, right? And now it's kind of a shit or get off the pot kind of deal, right? Like when you get there. We're going to cut here because I want to have you back to talk about the rest of that. We're not going to miss a beat, you guys. So make sure
love
that
it.
you have everything set that you're going to catch both of these episodes. But definitely listen to this one full video on YouTube. Amy, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at So She Did Life Coaching, and I'm on Facebook at Amy Watts. And yeah, the reinvention strategist. Reach out. But I'm super excited for the second half of this conversation. You're right; they have great
Good.
notes. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more.
More to come. We'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.